I'm excited to have more good news. I love, you know how much, for those of you who follow our firm and our YouTube channel and our Facebook group, you know, I get excited to give you good news because we're all about being positive here. Of course, if there is bad news to share, we want you to have all the facts, but of course, who doesn't love to give good news? So important information and updates about K1 and CR1 visas. So basically, it has just been a very, very difficult year. That's probably an understatement. Over 2020 and with COVID, there has just been so many delays in the U.S. embassies and consulates. For those of you who are going through the fiancé visa process and spouse visa process, you know it has been painful. What the good news is that there has been an update. Immigration has made an announcement on April 8th to provide special exceptions, or an announcement rather, for how they will handle K1 and CR1 visas. But basically, I want to give a little bit of background, and then I want to show you what the announcement is, and then I want to talk to you about what it means and what it doesn't mean. There's a lot of unknowns when announcements like this are made, but I know a lot of you were asking about this announcement and what it means. But first, let's go into some context. Basically, when COVID started and in 2020, there were a lot of proclamations that were issued that limited, or suspended rather, who could enter the United States. And so basically, all of those proclamations and all of those announcements from immigration were suspending entry of individuals into the United States. And K1 individuals who are applying for K1 visas and CR1 visas have seen that basically little to no interviews were occurring. And so everybody is just stuck in this limbo, waiting for interviews and not knowing when they're going to start again. And so on April 7th of 2021, American Immigration Lawyers Association filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration. The ALA secretary, I thought this comment was helpful or powerful rather. They said that there are many ways of dealing, the ALIS secretary said there are many ways of dealing with the COVID crisis, and the Department of State has the resources to do something more creative and responsible than to simply shut down the consulates. So yes, I know we all agree. And so basically this lawsuit was saying, yes, we understand that you need to take precautions because of COVID, but just completely having everything screech to a halt and everybody be stuck in limbo and be separated from their families, this isn't a viable solution. We need to do something. And so on April 8th, following day, the Secretary of State determined, and so this announcement is on the Department of State website, and I will share my screen here in a second so all of you can see this. I know some of the individuals in our Facebook group have posted this link as well. But basically the announcement was long, but I wanted to pull out the main part. Our firm, again, we represent couples going through the immigration process. So I pulled out the part that is applicable to all of you who are going through the K1 or a spouse visa process. And basically on April 8th of 2021, the Secretary of State determined that travel on an immigrant or fiancé visa is in the national interest for purposes of granting exceptions under the geographic COVID proclamations. So again, those are those proclamations that I said were announced in 2020. We saw continue into 2021, limiting the entry of individuals from certain countries, specifically the Schengen area countries. So let me go ahead, share my screen so you can see that announcement. And also I will put the link to the official Department of State website to the announcement in there. And then also the Department of State has a Facebook page that's helpful too for alerts. So you could always check that out too. And if you want to see regular alerts and information about that. So we recommend doing that as well, but I will post the link below. Let me share my screen. Okay, so hopefully all of you can see this. This was the announcement that was released on April 8th. It has that language that I said, the Secretary of State determined that travel on an immigrant or fiancé visa is in the national interest for purposes of granting exceptions under the geographic COVID proclamations. And so basically, the immigration journey is long and it has a lot of hurdles that you have to overcome. And with these proclamations that happened in 2020 and continued into 2021, specifically, you'll see right here, the geographic COVID, presidential proclamations. These are all that I highlighted here. These are all the proclamations that basically suspended entry of individuals from entering the United States. And the Department of State basically interpreted that as really screeching everything to a halt and not having interviews for K1s and Cr1s. Some have still occurred, but it just was really, really slow. All of you know, it's basically you're sitting in limbo wondering when things will resume to normal. And so the proclamations, they had restricted the entry for anybody who, for a 14-day period prior, had been in the Republic of China, Iran, Schengen area, United Kingdom, Republic of Ireland, Brazil, and Republic of South Africa. And so basically all of these proclamations were released, and then the Department of State basically came to a screeching halt and with interviews saying that they couldn't schedule interviews because of this. That was the lawsuit that I said on April 7th. This ALA secretary was asking for the Department of State to find a more creative way, and just completely closing down interviews and services is not the way to go about it. All right, so let me go ahead and unshare my screen. Okay, and so I want to talk about what this means and what this doesn't mean. So what it does mean is that now we have an official announcement from the Department of State saying, yes, we acknowledge that K1 visas, spouse visas, that they should be able to be scheduled for interviews, that is something that's in the national interest for people to be able to have interviews, to be able to be approved, and be able to enter the United States to be reunited with their families. And so that is the good news. Also, the good news is that it means that individuals coming from those areas aren't going to be subject to that 14-day quarantine. So I know a lot of our couples and a lot of individuals in our Facebook group have had to find creative ways of going to other countries to be able to be there for 14 days, so you could visit the United States and visit your loved one, visit your fiance, visit your spouse. And so basically that announcement is saying that that's not required. We have to wait with any proclamation like this. We really have to see how it's applied. So because it's very new, we have to see really what CBP will be doing with this. But technically, under this proclamation, that quarantine won't be required anymore. Also, trends that we're seeing since this announcement, we've had people in our Facebook group, also with the hundreds and hundreds of couples that we help, we are seeing more cases being forwarded to embassies for interviews. We've actually had people in our Facebook group say that they're starting to see more interviews for fiance and spouse visas. Of course, this varies from country to country, but we are seeing movement. Slowly but surely things are moving. I know you've heard me say that in other videos as well, that we are seeing things are starting to pick up little by little. What this doesn't mean, though, it doesn't mean that everything is going to resume to normal processing. The Department of State and each U.S. embassy and consulate in each country still has the discretion to determine, based on what's going on the ground with COVID in that particular country, when they will be able to resume completely normal processing. And so I want it to be clear that it doesn't mean that everybody's just going to start getting interviews right away. That would be great. And we hope that this will help. This proclamation, we hope, will help to continue getting things moving forward, getting clarity from the Department of State saying, yes, we are going to have interviews for K1 and Cr1 as we are able. So we'll keep you posted on the trends that we're seeing, but hopefully that gives you clarity about what the announcement is and what's to come and what it means and what it doesn't.